Hey everyone, my name is Corey Jenkins.
And I am Brad Swanson.
You have found Real Men, Real Answers, brought to you by the Mailroom TV, and you may have tuned in a few minutes ago and saw that we tried to get started. We're in a brand new studio this week. This is the Angel Station, so I want to give a quick shout out and thank you to Claudia Flores for offering us her space tonight. Here's how this show works. We originally conceived this show, Brad, because we simply wanted to have the conversations about relationships and sex and dating and love and how masculine and feminine and men and women and men and women all get along. So Brad and I bring our real life experiences, and we also like to bring other folks on. So you probably know Dr. Ray. He's been on the show several times. Ray, I'm glad you're here again.
Thank you. Hello.
Doctorate in clinical psychology. He's a therapist here in the LA area.
You got that right, actually.
I know. I looked at my homework. So you can also see more of him at raydoctor.com, which we'll have beneath the video. We also have Antoinette Cabral with us, who is a feminine sensuality expert.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here.
So we're going to get into a dialogue like we always do. Oh, by the way, we also have a new voice that is off camera, and this is going to be Mica. So she'll be chatting with you, listening to your questions that are coming up. We're live right now, so send your questions through the chat on Ustream. You can also chat on facebook.com/themailroom. And if you hear a voice coming out of the side, that's Mica. She's moderating for us, letting us know what your questions are. So, Brett, this is pretty interesting. You know, a bunch of things happened in this last week since our last show.
Yeah.
I know you're working with your mic there, so if you guys are hearing that. But you and I were discussing the fact that we've both had experiences with women that we're interacting with where it seems like their link to anything in the realm of affection or sensuality or sexuality seems to be like black or white, meaning it's like full-blown penetration sex or it's just shut down. There's very little affection. It seems like there's a major disconnect between the way people are interacting. Tell us a little bit about what your experience
Yes,
was.
there is a major gap, so to speak. There's a major gap. That just came up. That just came up. But seriously, I've had some really powerful interactions, and like for example, there's a woman I've been hanging out with, and we were talking, and we were having this whole discussion, and it's like, you know, what I really realized is that what a disconnect there is between men and women, and the masculine and feminine. So it's like there's this whole thing going on. It's getting bigger and bigger. I'm realizing there's such a disconnect is what we think sex is, what intimacy is, like all of those like nuances. Because I grew up in a family, you and I have talked about this before, that is very loving and very caring and touchy, feely. You know, it's like it's not a big deal to touch each other, love each other. And how that translates into our sex lives. Now, what I'm realizing is there's a lot of women, they've never ever had an experience with a man that's been like sweet, gentle, caring, that's just caressing, loving, kissing, like the simple things.
It's kind of like you're either
you're either getting pounded or it's nothing. You know, it's that real disconnect that is you're either fucking or there's nothing. Yeah. And there's no love and nothing in between.
I've been in that conversation before where like I may have literally just kissed a woman and then we look at each other and it's almost like actually they've said this, does this mean we're going to have sex? And I'm like, we just kissed.
Yeah.
Why do we have to jump from there to, why does it have to mean that? But I got that from their past experiences, that's part of what they've been conditioned with, is they think that there's like a man, as soon as he gets the kiss, that he feels like he's entitled to just, boom, have it all.
Something like that. I mean, it's so embedded. What I'm seeing is it's so embedded, and this is like the reason we're having this conversation, is that, you know, these experiences keep showing up because these are women. This is a grown woman. This is somebody who's had experiences. And I've talked to other women. I was talking to someone else today. It's about the same conversation and how just these simple things that you can do. You know, and I'm excited to hear what she has to say about it. You know, from a woman's standpoint, having that shift in her own awareness of you know, what that means and how we can help guide men toward this way of being, because that's the key to unlocking a woman. Like, that's the key to having this incredible, loving, sexual, playful relationship with a woman. They're like these women are my learning in this process is that women are like these amazing things that they, like a flower, like you have to like know the key to like unlock them. But once you do, they like will overflow with love. Now that means everything. That means like incredible play, fun, sex, like all this stuff. And it's just these little things that when you're intimate, when you have intimacy and you're present and you're paying attention to their bodies, they're like these amazing like jigsaw puzzles that you have to like pay attention to.
Freaking hurricane, man. They're a hurricane.
The thing that I'm seeing, that men are afraid of is the intimacy.
Well, let's talk about this a little bit because
okay, I want to ask something. But you said something about it's either pounding or they're closed off. And even with women, they when they communicate, they actually, when you talk about have you had good sex with someone, they oftentimes will say that it's long sex or it's deep sex or it's pounding sex. They even have an association to it the same way, where they have picked up the language from men.
Yes. Totally.
And so they don't even know what lovemaking truly is.
Right.
And but
Absolutely.
But what's really important to and I'm sure you'll agree here is that we know still that a woman wants to be pounded, but she wants to be pounded by God. She wants to be pounded by someone who's present, who can open her up.
Absolutely.
So it's about that full
Absolutely.
presence. So it's not about some fucking wimpy guy going, oh, I'm gonna stick it in.
Hell no! You're exactly right. It's about being deeply connected as a man. Absolutely.
Well, but what about as a woman? I mean, that's part of what I want to hear from Antoinette, and this is part of what I think is fascinating, Antoinette, about this is. Tell us a little bit about what female sensuality is and what your experience is with it, even without the man being present, but then how what you learn from there you can bring into a sexual relationship with somebody else.
Yes, absolutely. So I call it empowered sensuality or feminine sensuality. And it's really a woman connected to who she is. Who she is like as a woman and her body. And so when a woman is connected to her body, it's a way of being as opposed to an act.
Correct.
So everything is subtle. It's like the way that she eats, the way that she moves, the way she touches her hair, the way that she's going to talk to a man. So it is coming from a deep connection to who she is, and then everything stems from that.
Well,
so there's a big difference.
Well, let's hear more about that because, when we're doing real men, real answers, sometimes without a woman here, we often talk about the men we need to be to cultivate that with a woman. But your experience is that that can be done without the man even being present, and it's something that a woman can actually bring into an interaction.
Absolutely.
So talk to us a little bit about how a woman develops that on her own,
Absolutely.
or how a woman maybe separates from the conditioning that Ray was talking about.
First off, I want to comment on that. I think it's each person's responsibility to get to know who they are on all levels, physically, sexually, emotionally, spiritually. And when each person can really embody that, that's when these two people can come together and really have an amazing, thriving relationship. So when each individual does that, that's where you can take relationships to the next level. Thank
you for clarifying that, by the way. I mean, that's a big part of my word awareness is anytime we're talking about your conditioning or your belief systems, we never mean they have to stay that way. That's the whole concept of awareness, is becoming aware of what your conditioned belief systems are, and then exactly like Antoinette said is what's possible when you get to know yourself beyond those.
Absolutely.
And so how did you come into this yourself? Like, what is your past, your history?
Yeah, you're an expert.
Yeah,
so about your personal
how did that
experience.
that's part of the show?
I teach what I have to learn. So I was very closed off, didn't know who I was had low self-esteem, had so much doubt, chronic self-doubt, and it showed up in my relationships. And so in my relationships, I was closed off, I was so needy, was so wounded, very hurt, and I needed all of this from the relationship, and it showed up very clearly. So that was my indication in my first love relationship that I needed to go back to who I was, like love myself, and that started my journey. And all of the pain and all of the wounding created, I'll call them body blocks or knots. And so I held that, and that's where the woman's power center is, in her womb, in her hips, in her belly. So this is where the woman carries her power, and this is where she carries her sensuality, her sexuality, and her connection to who she is. This is where I was holding all of this. Okay, this is all the emotional center, and this is the part of the body that most women, 99% of the women, are disconnected from because we were not taught. We've been living in a masculine world where we've been residing from the upper half because that's all we've known, and that's how we played safe.
Okay.
Yeah, and those energy centers she's talking about, those are connected to creativity, sexuality, and also feeling rooted. Okay. So oftentimes if a woman's not feeling rooted here and feeling that foundation with that man, it's very hard for her to bring that all the way up.
Okay. Absolutely.
I want to, you and I didn't prep for this at all, but you and I, we've hung out a couple of times, and those times, I hope I don't embarrass you, we've hung out. I remember it being very playful, and you were able to relax in your femininity, and you were also kind of being very conscious of kind of yourself, and we had some really great conversations by that. But also, being your friend and knowing you, I've also seen you develop, which I think is really awesome, because when you're going through the process, you would check in with your body and see where it's coming from, and also take responsibility and talk about it, which is really cool. So I just want to say, like in front of you, I've seen her do her own work with herself, and just hanging out with her, I remember just that playfulness. We were both kind of able to kind of fall back into that and be playful and be beautiful, feminine, masculine people. So it's a process. It's like in communication. We can sit there and talk at this very moment where we're actually in our heads and we're like, wait a minute, we're not even in our hearts. What's the point here? It's bringing it back into the body. But most people, when they think about being comfortable in their body or their sexuality, it's connected to their genitals. But like she said, it's a playfulness. It's a way of moving your body. And just like a little girl, just imagine a little girl who's very free and moving around like a little girl, and she's like 10 years old, and maybe she starts developing breasts a little bit, and her father sees her like getting attention from men or boys, and he says, stop doing that. You're being slutty or whatever. And she's not even being necessarily sexual. She's being sensual. She's being feminine.
Interesting.
So you understand, people have a misconception of femininity with sexuality.
That's a great example, Ray. So I mean, I could imagine that being very common where young women are being very natural. They're expressing their natural behavior at a young age. And of course, a father or somebody wants to protect them because we're misunderstanding that, and then they take that on as a social conditioning, and it ends up being repressed sexuality, repressed sensuality as an adult. Interesting. So what are how does a woman begin to, let's say a woman has awareness, she's watching the show and goes, boom, wow, there's something I want to change in my life. How do you start to do that? I mean, how do you go from here to here?
So first off, it's awareness like you had shared. So awareness is the trigger in the mind to activate the body. And then after the awareness is making that decision that this is what you want, and to receive guidance if that's what it needs. And I believe that in order to shift your way of being is to practice, and to practice something, to practice the integrating. For me personally, I practice with my teachers. You know, practice connecting to my body, and I receive the support.
So what does that mean though?
Like
connecting.
What it looks like type of thing?
Like
what
literally,
what practice might be.
Okay, so practice is, instead of, let's say, being here, so the women who are watching right now, so it's really just close your eyes and take a deep breath and feel where you're holding. Are you holding your tension in your head, in your upper shoulders? Are you holding it right over here in your heart? Where are you feeling your tension? And just breathe into the space that you're feeling tightness. And just by the breathing and being aware, and just breathe and exhale. And that is one really powerful step, is to connect to the body with breathing. Slow breathing is a powerful way to connect to the body.
So, I mean, it's really just more consciousness of your entire body in its natural way that it wants to express.
If a person is more naturally masculine, if they were to do kind of the same exercise, it would connect into that also.
Oh, very
Both men and women usually find themselves in nature.
Interesting. Yeah, Mica, throw in our first one.
Just to dig back into what you guys mentioned before, someone named Stephanie would actually like to know what the primary issue is for us women to be so disconnected. We all know we are disconnected, and we sort of, you guys mentioned that we are in a masculine world, but I guess she was trying to say she would like to know the primary reason why we're so extremely disconnected with our sensuality.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe that goes back to Brad's original explanation about, I mean, why is it that these women seem to think that there's also just no affection or sex affection?
Well, it's both men and women. Why is it that men, why do we, when we just touch a woman or whatever, immediately go like, oh my God, I just want to have sex? When you get calm and you actually own yourself as a man, it's like you start enjoying the caressing, the gentle stuff, and it's like that's what actually turns me on now, because I've grown into that, where it's not just about the arousal of my penis. Like that actually is all, that's like 4th and 5th and 6th down the line now, where it gets to that because I've sat there and gotten excited with my partner, and like we're breathing and we're like checking each other's bodies out. That's what's actually, it's like an exploration of each other. I mean, that's what I'm saying is that for a man, it's been disconnected for both. And then we've put that on women, and women have been like, it's just been sex.
Okay. And then I think the other one is women haven't felt safe to express who they are as their potential. And sensuality is part of a woman's potential. And if it's located in here, because of the conditioning, fathers protecting, being sexually violated, most of the women that I coach right now, they don't feel safe. And they have experiences that they're carrying in their emotional body of having really bad experiences. So you can walk down the street, and have men, you can feel violated just by walking down the street.
Absolutely.
So and she's going to turn that off, because why does she want that? Why does she want that? Like, the conditioning is, if she's radiating that, then she's not going to feel safe. So that is a big deal.
Huge
deal. I'm going to go a little bit even further beyond that, and that is just children or little girls, the way that they learn to understand their own inner world is by social interaction with the world outside of themselves, and that's by also looking at social cues. If you actually look at little girls and how they communicate with their parents, it's usually by looking at their facial gestures and their breath and everything, all those little nuances. Whereas little boys, they can go off and just play with their toys by themselves. And so for a little girl, the way that they know that their world is safe is by maybe seeing the smile on their father's face or the smile on their mother's face. But just imagine a little girl, for the most part, they've had this disconnect with their fathers. So with their father, they're going to, most fathers, they oftentimes, their face is flat. So imagine if you're not getting any type of response. Imagine that you're not able to get to know everything's okay, that your world is okay, fathers may be working too hard, and so on. This is how we create the social structures of the brain. So little girls learn that I have to change things. I have to look a certain way, I have to be a certain way to get this attention. Then this little girl becomes a little bit older, she becomes a teenager, she's starting to see that, if I look like this will give me that attention, and so on and so on. Then it builds to where it's negative attention, and so they start closing off. So a lot of times what's confusing, because I think underneath that question was, how do women get to this place? I think at the root of it, it's like, think about that disconnect right there. They're never taught in the most loving way of just, they're beautiful the way that they are. And they've never been taught that if I'm upset with you, honey, it has nothing to do with you. They internalize everything. And so here they are women today seeking attention, wanting that, and yet not knowing how to experience that without feeling safe. So it's about really embodying themselves, doing what Antoinette does here, and bringing it back to that again, and making sure that it has nothing to do with what happened to you in the past or the world around you, but really finding that within yourself, within your body, and what she mentioned earlier.
Absolutely. And then one more thing I wanted to say is, gosh, I just forgot my thought.
Well, while you're thinking about it, I wanted to integrate something that came up for me as I was listening to you all, because as a man, I am constantly working on, how can I have awareness of my own issues, resolve those issues, and how can I help bring consciousness to everything else? And it's interesting because I hadn't thought about this, but the more we're talking about it, I'm thinking about my own experience and how one time I was involved in a very serious relationship. I lived with a woman, and I remember we got into a discussion about this because I had a belief system basically that was, well, as soon as we live together, then basically every time we get in bed, I get to have sex. And every morning I wake up, I get to have sex. And it wasn't, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, exactly.
But that was it. It was like, I'm brushing my teeth before I'm going to bed. I'm like, woo, I'm getting ready to have sex. And she's like, that's not just a default that's going to happen. Like, that didn't work for her. But through communication, we were able to identify that. And so it's just interesting because I just sort of want to acknowledge that that's something that I don't know where I got that training from. I don't know where I got that conditioning from. But I can see how me behaving that way, it was going to happen until somebody was like, hey, that doesn't work for me. And so I guess I'm just thinking of sharing my own experience and also encouraging women out there to communicate with your partners, even the guys you're married to, the ones that you love, that, you know, connect.
That is such a good point.
Communicate.
And that's exactly the point I was just talking about with this woman, is that we all have these default like settings that we've all been brought up with, but we've never actually like looked to see, does this actually really serve me? Does it fulfill me? Am I actually excited about this? Does it feel good? Like, do I enjoy this? Because I had the same things, and it's from our parents, and it's however you were raised and whatever you saw, and it's time to stop and like take a look at those and go, you know, am I communicating with this person? Have I ever communicated with my partner? Ever? There's people who've never communicated.
They just
ever.
play roles.
Never have they ever communicated about their sex life, or this works for me, or this doesn't work for me, or just, you know, that you expect sex when we go to bed, or I want it done this certain way. Like, it's a constant ebb and flow of communication between the energies if you're paying attention. That's what I see is actually happening, is what's possible.
Antoinette, did you remember what you were going to say? If not, we'll give you another pause. Mica, what's next on the chat coming in? Thank you guys for your posts on facebook.com/themailroom and your chatting on Ustream.
Okay. I actually have an interesting question from Facebook as well. It's a little bit different from what you guys just talked about, but someone is asking, is using your sensuality connected to Tantra?
Oh,
that's a good question.
Yeah, I'm curious. Is that what we're talking about? I mean, I don't really know what Tantra is.
What is Tantra?
Thank you.
That was the next question.
Please explain that to me. What is Tantra?
What's the short description of Tantra?
There's different definitions. I can tell you what I've learned, and it was going back to, at the very beginning, it's knowing who you are. Physically, spiritually, sexually, emotionally, and being your whole potential. And you're using the sexual energy to, and there's...
So it's not me and my partner sitting there doing a spider, and they in like a group of like 10 other couples. Like, I swear that's what
I thought it was something like that too. I don't know why.
That's called sacred sexuality, but basically you're using sexual energy from the universe to empower yourself and helping to open up. Open up again. Open up your heart. Open up this area.
I like that.
Keep opening up again. So that's whatever's blocking and getting you away from being your full potential, you can use that to utilize that and use that life force to be open, to be like your heart open wide, for you to release the past and just really be present.
So just like everything else that has even an inkling to do with sex, it often gets sort of marketed as super sexual versus something that's spiritual or
exactly.
intimate.
Just like yoga, there's the way they've marketed yoga here. So yoga is just the postures or the asanas, and actually if you go to yoga in India, it's a whole lifestyle. It's being present. It's, you know, it's devotion. There's so many different layers to it, and that's Tantra. It's really just opening up to your full potential so that you can be free. What is holding you back from really being free?
Yeah, Tantra, the tantric path could be synonymous to conscious living, because it's really just being aware.
Thank you.
For example, it's just like, say, eating a piece of chocolate and really tasting it on, savoring it and feeling that in your body. That could be very essential. It could be your partner being present with you, and he or she is rubbing your ears, and you're getting turned on by that. Not just because how it feels, but the fact that you're inside of each other. And also, lovemaking is not necessarily that moment where you take off the clothes. For example, I was on a really long date. It turned out to be a long date, and because
this is where it gets good, folks.
This is just because we were just we were kind of unfolding throughout the whole process, to where when we had the, say, sexual experience, that the person had an incredible experience. I mean, that's at least you told me.
Were you like, yes?
But it was more that it took time to create. Like, basically, I saw it as this, when we both connected. It was like, first we had to come to like a garden with no weeds, no expectations, nothing. I didn't have my stuff planted from other women and other ideas. There was no history there. And so when we came together, it was as if we started planting seeds. We started putting water in it, and things started growing. By the time it came to really experiencing each other and just biting into that juicy fruit and the vegetables, we had already set the foundation. So it took that much time, and you know, for women,
he's like the roomie of Santa.
It takes time for a woman to unfold. It takes time, like you said, there's all that blockage there. Are you gonna? If I cry, will you be there? If I like just somehow go to some place I've never been before, will you be there? And it's just so important. So many women have been violated in so many ways. There's been so much sexual trauma just by being looked at,
Absolutely.
And so when a man, instead of like looking at you like, in fact, this can really shut down a woman. She starts taking off her clothes and you have like freaking vampire like teeth. Or, you know, a pair of titties, whatever. But how about a woman taking off her clothes and he's not looking at her breasts, but he's like, looking at her as this goddess, you know, being really connected to those pheromones, connected to her vibration, just really being connected to that. That is different. That's going to make her feel more sexy because it's going to make her feel less conscious, like, are my breasts too big, or big enough, or am I this and that, rather the guy's going, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, I just fucking taste you right now, like energetically.
And then to take that even further,
I think I want to go on a date with you.
I know, right? I'm totally turned on.
that's hot.
Man, you're gonna feed me fruit. You're gonna unfold me slowly. I think I might be down for that.
I'm totally sweating.
So I would like to watch that. Definitely like to watch that.
Price.
I loved how you explained that, Ray. And yes, it's a spiritual experience like the tantric life. But if you know, for the intimacy, it's like the unfolding and being present without the agenda.
Yeah.
Really just like
like
without the agenda, being present, heart open, and you know, with that love and trust, and just saying, you know, without the agenda, then the openness can happen, and you don't have to have sex, or you do. I mean, there's really, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
That's a big deal, and you know, the guys that are watching out there, if you haven't had that experience, I really encourage that, because I've had that experience also, where it's just that, it's literally like bringing present moment awareness to your interaction with your partner, where it isn't about getting to anywhere. It's about literally savoring every single moment, regardless of where it is in the process of having sex or just being connected.
Well, you asked me if I got what I wanted, or you said something. I know you're joking, but I didn't answer because that mere reason. I just her scent on me. Oh man, I don't want to shower for a couple days. Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to say.
It kind of looks like you haven't.
So thank you.
Yeah, you have something on your chin.
Oh my god.
All right. Yeah, this is not white.
That actually took us out. That was pretty savvy. Wow. Wow, what's next, Mica?
Well, I actually have a question.
Oh, bring it on.
Since you guys talked about it, let's say a woman is very connected and, you know, comfortable with her sexuality and is sensual, and what I sometimes experience, if I'm open about it, then I still receive some sort of judgment, whether that be from other females or males that are either intimidated by it, or other, you know, then you get the slutty judgment. So that then makes me close off again. And so it's always a back and forth of where I'm content and comfortable with who I am. But then you have all these outside influences, the judgment and the conditioning, and then, you know, the energies that you feel from sometimes even more women than men, because men are just like, oh, googly-eyed, woo. But most women, the jealousy comes in, and then the judgment of she must be a slut, she must be this. So my question is, how do you protect yourself from not falling back into closing off and be like, oh no, you know, I shouldn't do this?
It's not even really even protecting yourself. It's about still embodying who you are. It just means more work. Because the bottom line, we're always going to be judged by people insecure, and they're going to project that onto us. It's about, if anything, I'd want you to go out there, I'm a fucking sacred slut. I mean, it's like, you know, I mean, I'm connected to God, I meditate, I mean, I'm rooted in who I am, but you know what? I'm fucking hot too.
Yeah, another way I would say it is, and I heard this quote from somebody else, but perfect protection is perfect vulnerability. Totally. And it really is. It's being so clear about who you are that And just like you said, that no judgment is going to land on you. It's just going to slide right by.
Mm-hmm.
But Antoinette, do you have that experience? I mean, obviously you coach this, you've practiced this. I mean, tell us a little bit about, I'm assuming, and you said it comes from practice. So have you had both experiences, like sort of going out there, feeling the judgment, maybe slipping back, and then later on continuing to grow into that?
It's always going back to connecting to who you are as a woman. And if you are feeling like, okay, I'm getting judged, what are you needing that you can give to yourself? Like, what are you needing from them that you can give to yourself? And every single time that we're getting triggered, I always ask that question, or like my clients, what do you need? Give it to yourself first. And the more that you're connected to your truth and that you give yourself exactly what you want, then you're going to get less affected by the outside world, just giving yourself that permission to shine, because ultimately we're going to constantly get judged. You know, we're going to be facing those judgments and saying, and it's really giving, like really loving yourself fiercely and like open-heartedly, and constantly going back to, you know, giving yourself permission to really radiate in your power.
Absolutely. And again, it's law of attraction, because when you start feeling that way, you're going to have other girls like, you're freaking hot.
Absolutely.
Like, thank you.
Well,
thank you for liberating us.
That's right.
You're going to get compliments.
What I notice is women compliment each other. Like they really, and guys too. It's like when you start to own your stuff, it's like you can say, wow, that look how sexy that person is.
And then if you're seeing competition, it's probably there's still a form of competition inside of you. And reflection. And I've had that, you know, even recently. And I addressed it. I went into my body. I'm like, where am I feeling this? I even talked to her about it. And basically, we just realized as soon as we talked to each other, communicated, it dissipated. And we realized, you know, I realized, I'm like, wow, there was something in her that I felt like I didn't have inside of me. And really, I just went back to loving myself, and it dissipated. And really, like, my heart expanded even more. And these are the women that I attract, is really like not competing. It's really lifting each other to our highest potential. Really.
I mean, guys don't get as much unless you're like really eccentric or you dress a certain way. But like there are certain, I have a lot of friends who dress very eccentrically, and so do I. In certain social circumstances, I will get looked at by other guys. It's usually they're just uncomfortable with their own femininity. Because the way I dress, the way I move and talk, sometimes they're like looking at me. And they'll ask me questions, or it's strange, but I know that they're just uncomfortable with themselves. So,
you know, for me, this really comes back, and you know, Brad is the love and communication specialist, but part of the reason I love that is because communication is so important. Because as I'm listening to that, and I'm thinking, well, what's the man's perspective on this? You know, how am I likely to react if I encounter a woman like this? And it's interesting because I can imagine not being sure. But that's why I'm such a fan of communication also, Brad, is because if a woman is like, if a woman would actually she's being that and would communicate it to me, I would sit back and listen. And that's one of the reasons when I was posting this week about this show, I wanted to talk about redefining what a real man was. And a real man is one that will listen and is evolving. But ladies, part of the process between the masculine and feminine is also communicating and sharing what's going on. And so, you know, if you are working on yourself, or if you're doing anything, communicate with your partner about it. Because, you know, guys like Brad and myself and Ray, we'll pay attention, but we love that. We also need support, and it's like mutually beneficial. If a woman shows up and says, hey, this is what I'm working on, I'm trying to learn this about myself, and you share it with us, the guys, you know, the conscious guys out there are going to go, oh, tell me more. Let's talk about this. Let's see what happens.
Well, it's about being, you know, you have to be comfortable with. In communication, there's that first kind of like hurdle where you're going to come up against your likes and your dislikes, or I'm afraid to reveal how I really feel, because that creates vulnerability. It's like, you know, it's easier to kind of just stay shut down, but the second that you actually address something that comes up, the next moment when the person listens is intimacy, and then all of a sudden there's like this attraction that happens, and it grows. Like that's where the actual intimacy grows, is in that communication. There's that fear, the very first thing when you want to communicate something that may be hard to say, and then the next moment it's like this release, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's love present, there's intimacy present, and that's where everything stems from in that moment.
Communication is just so important also to keep the sexual polarity alive. Oftentimes people kind of fall into certain roles, and would you say that you like to wear different shoes, and you like to try different fruits and different experiences?
Absolutely.
Okay, so like if you have your partner, your lover, figured out and he's always the same, are you going to get bored with him?
Oh, absolutely.
So if you were to constantly challenge him with conversations and him also constantly challenge you, will the relationship stay passionate or alive?
Of course.
So that's just really important to really be clear with that, because it's even if it's like it might hurt her, do it, because she can't grow without her.
That's right.
Maybe hearing it, and it goes back and forth. I mean, it's funny about, the relationships where people like fight a lot, but they have the greatest sex, and they try to break up and they come back together.
Yeah.
Part of that tension is that polarity. I'm not saying it's healthy. I'm not saying that addictive type of relationship is healthy, but in that is still a polarity. Now imagine if you can sit there and have that in a loving, supportive relationship, that same intensity. It's not where we have to fight to like fuck afterwards. It's where you can communicate and go, wow, I just really like you. Thank you for telling me more about yourself. It creates that excitement. And that is the excitement that is present when people first start dating. It's because you're figuring each other out. You're learning, you're growing. Like, you're calling each other on each other's stuff. You're like, oh my God, I thought you had you figured out. Or it's exciting, it's new. You don't know what to expect.
That's right.
And that can happen forever.
Yeah.
I brought this up a couple times to my parents. My dad is 86, my mom is 77. My dad is going therapy, like for the last year. He's like really being gentle. I saw my parents, like he was like adjusting the air conditioner, and he's like, God damn it, Mickey, did you touch this thing? And he got behind him and started like grabbing his breast. He starts laughing. I'm like, oh my God, they're like having fun.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is freaking cool. They're like that. They're like very playful, and they don't hold back. I've heard my dad say some shit. I've heard my mother say some shit, but I've seen them love each other through all of it. They've been together for almost 50 years.
Very interesting.
And so it's just that they're not walking on eggshells for each other. You don't want to walk on eggshells for each other. And that's how you polarize each other.
Absolutely.
I love it. Mica, what's next?
I have another question. What is the difference between being sexy and sensual? Or is there such a difference?
I actually want to know the answer to that too. What's the difference between being sexy and being sensual?
It was the same answer before. I think sensual is the connection to your body, and sex is more of like the act or the energy. It's like the physical act. And sensuality to me, like I said, is a lifestyle. It's who you are. It's connecting to your body, connecting to your power, your intuition, and that in turn creates the way that you are in the world.
Got it.
By being in that
So if
way.
you are out and being sexy, you're more being sensual.
Well, it stems from here first. So there's women who try to be sexy, and it's an act more than coming from the deep connection to who they are.
Absolutely.
And that is an act for them, and empowered sensuality is really being deeply rooted in who you are and that deep connection. And that just takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Because a lot of the women, I mean, if you're talking about the women who are so used to just having sex right away, they've been taught that's the way that they're going to have intimacy.
Right.
So they have the first, like, for them, it's like, well, kissing and then sex.
Yeah, that's what
Kissing and then sex, because that's what, in order for me to get attention and for me to experience intimacy, they're going to go straight to that act, and there's not that in-between. And in the in-between is the woman being connected and the man being connected, and then, like we said, like having no agenda, being present.
So let
in
me
the sexual
lob
act.
a question in here then.
But part of being sensual, or you asked that question, is that just think of think of sensory perception, or think of your senses. Part of really activating your body is by smelling, hearing, touching, all of those things. So if you're engaging in life that way, just imagine how turned on you are.
Absolutely.
Just in any moment, you're living life orgasmically.
Absolutely.
So
Totally true.
Yeah, I think that's cool. Brad did a blog a couple of weeks ago called, I think, Men Like Affection Too, or Men Want Affection Too.
Healthy affection.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to talk about that a little bit because, Ray, you already talked about it. I mean, you gave us a great example of a date unfolding where there was a lot of affection, and there was, I think we were talking about it in terms of Tantra, but Brad and I have talked about that a lot, where there's tremendous enjoyment in the space between not touching and sex. I mean, there's a ton of fun space to play in there.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I just kind of want to say to the women out there, especially, that you know, let's hang out in that space a while, because you know, every time I touch you or put my hand on your back or even kiss you doesn't mean the next thing I want to do is put my penis in you. I want to.
Well, we do at some point,
but it doesn't mean it has to happen to me. Like,
no,
I
exactly.
enjoy all that space in between, and I
Yes.
think there's a lot of fun in there. And I mean, is that from a evolved woman's perspective, Antoinette? Is that also part of the experience? I mean,
absolutely, absolutely. A woman can set the pace as well. It's really, you know, if a man is in a hurry, because it can happen the other way around. I mean, that happens to a lot of my clients. Hey, like, he's in a hurry. It's really, I mean, the woman has a vagina. She could set the pace. She really can just slow the pace down. It doesn't have to. And like you said, she can communicate that.
She's
What
the
about
gatekeeper.
this? She's the
yes,
gatekeeper.
no, yes, no.
What about this? You know, slow it down. Be in that, the feminine inspiration, and, you know, bring in the senses. Bring in the senses. Having an eating experience where you just slow down. Take that to others besides sex. You know, breathe together, talk together, you know, walk on the beach slowly, experience all the different senses.
That's cool.
And that will turn, I mean, anything. You know, for me, I love just, let's say there's this rose garden in Santa Monica. I love going there and just smelling the roses, walking barefoot on the grass, or like going to the beach and really feeling the connection, like feeling the wind and the sun, and having, for me, that's a sensual experience, really just connecting to my body and just breathing and receiving that in. And that's something that I'm gifting to myself. And you can take that into your intimate relationships, saying, let's play together in this way. There's no reason why we need to hurry.
Yeah, there's two things coming up when you share that. Absolutely. It's really important to be aware of energy, and that is where energy for men, it starts usually here, and the goal is to bring it up. Whereas for women, the energy starts here, like I can trust you, that connection, so they have to bring it down. And so, you know, yang, the masculine, is just quick to ignite. It could explode. With that being said, too, you mentioned something about being touched. For women, of course, they like to be touched. Men need to be touched even more to keep like the oxytocin, or just keep the bonding neurochemicals in their body. That is why oftentimes men are wanting sex more, but what it is that they use sex as a vehicle to feel better and connected with themselves and with their partner. A lot of times, and women will feel this, and they'll deprive their men from that, and then the man ends up either masturbating, or he ends up going out and hooking up with someone else. That's like the worst thing you can do with your partner, because it's like, for men, it wears off much quicker, that connection, versus with women, it lasts in her body much longer. That's why also when men and women hook up, when they have sex, where the woman might feel still bonded for a while, might stay in her body, say 3 weeks. For a man, 72 hours.
Interesting.
And so he's off, like, you know, hunting again. So it's very important to keep the love making, the constant touching, all of that. You don't have those neurochemicals we're talking about. You don't have to have actual sex to do that. It could be right now, I'll put my hands on you for 20 minutes and we'll have some bonding going on here.
Yeah.
I mean,
do
it's
I buy
just,
you dinner after that?
yeah, but it's just, you can experience that even as a straight guy getting a massage.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Like sometimes men think like, I will go out and just hook up with a girl, and they come home still feeling very empty. You can go out and get a massage by a man or a woman and somehow feel connected to your body. Because we still are chemicals. We still are chemicals. And the greatest way to connect our chemicals is to connect to our senses.
You know, isn't the level of oxytocin lower in men though?
Yes.
So, and that's the bonding hormone, correct?
Yes, one of them, yes.
Okay, so what's the other one? Like, how would you increase that if it's between men and women have the higher capacity? I mean, women do have...
Well, here's you brought that up, for example. If you, like men under stress, they usually become, it lowers, and they feel the need to feel more connected. Like when women are under stress, that they're going to wait a while before they connect with a man. But just think of all the men who've gone to war, and right after the war, they brought a war bride back. Okay? And so oftentimes, I know men are listening, they're like, oh my God, you're right. When I broke up with my girlfriend, I thought about like hooking up right away. Right. There's stress in their body, and they're depleted from that neurochemical, which we're talking about. And so, again, it drives them. If we can like become, but consciousness, regardless to everything that we're saying, consciousness, awareness, breathing your body, overrides all of that. All of this stuff I'm talking about. That's why we have to be able to rise above that. Otherwise, we're just like the silverback gorillas running around like, oh!
Or silver chin gorillas.
But
you know, the point that I think that I got from that was that just how important the touching is. I mean, because to me, like that has been my personal experience. Like,
Yes.
I love that. I love when a woman will be affectionate, will be physical with me,
Yeah.
and it doesn't need to necessarily be about leading towards sex. I want to be touched. Damn
Absolutely.
it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be on my penis. It just touch me, love me.
I love cuddling. I love it.
Totally.
I do. It reminds me of when I was a little kid. I don't know why I'm bringing this up. Why not? But my mom used
Real
to.
men, real answers.
Yeah, my mom used to clean the house, and I would always just want to touch her. And I also know this because my dad was just yelling all the time. He had this intense, aggressive, masculine energy. So I was also cleaning to her, and she would actually wrap me around her back, like, and would. I remember, yeah, she would clean with me on her back. I bonded with my mom that way, and I know that neutralized me. And I know that with men in general, that if they were to have that, they'd probably be more centered in their body. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Thank you, Mom.
So we got about
Thanks,
15 minutes left, so which means we have plenty of time. Make sure you're posting your questions on our Ustream channel in the chat and also on facebook.com/themailroom. Mica, what's flying in right now?
I have flying in actually a question for the three of you.
The
Stephanie
men?
is asking,
The men.
guys, you're sitting here with Antoinette having this conversation. Does this attract you?
Oh, that is an interesting question.
Is she asking we're attracted to her or what?
Basically.
Well, I guess she's trying to say if it attracts you the way she's, in her sensuality, the way she's
Brad?
communicating this. There's just something you attract to, because we were there before where we were like, some guys get intimidated by women that are, comfortable with their sensuality, sexuality, who they are. So
well, to answer that honestly, it's like, yes, I'm always, whenever I'm with a woman who's centered and definitely confident with herself, I'm attracted. Like I'm attracted to the feminine, divine feminine, like all the time. It's the thing that I've discovered is that on this process, this path, is that diving in and doing the work on yourself as a man, the whole thing, the whole experience of we're here to like divinely fuck all the time, and that means in talking, hanging out, eating food, it's the divine fuck. Like, I want to be sensual. I didn't know I was not sensual when I was younger. I didn't know that I could enjoy food and women and the world and beauty like the way that I have. It's like I've woken up so that everything is this sensual experience. So like I say this all the time, but I want to make love to everything all the time. I want to have sex with everything all the time. Like, I really do. It's like,
Well, you just mean really connect.
really
with
connect,
it.
but just make love to it, like in the way that, not like the actual act of sex, but sometimes, but just I truly enjoy. Like, I'm truly enjoying the world. Like, really enjoy, so that every single thing is like this sensual experience. And and I come from Colorado. I'm like a regular dude. I grew up in a very regular household and stuff like that. So it's like it's been a really interesting surprise kind of like perception that's shifted in my life. And I just want to say that to all the other guys out there, that's like, it doesn't make you a wuss. It doesn't make you like, connecting to your emotions makes you more of a man, more masculine, and more, women are attracted to that. Like,
Yeah.
I want to answer that question.
Please.
When I'm around Antoinette, that basically, like, when we see each other, even if there's been time in between, we don't like just hug like, hey, what's up? We connect. We look at each other. And I love that. And we don't have to say anything, probably a good 5 minutes, or we get where we're at in that moment. I wish all women were like that, actually. Seriously, because what it does is it makes me fall back and be comfortable with myself. And again, it makes me step into my true essence. So absolutely. Now, there's also women who try to do that. They try to be all goddess out, and more they're into the clothes and the lingo
And the
and all that. And it's not there. It's like, it's like Yogini smoking cigarettes outside the studio. You know what I mean? I mean, you gotta really embody it. And there's people who are like so disconnected from the language, who are more natural in their bodies than women who claim to be tantrikers or whatever. A lot of women who get on this path, they get on this path because of struggles, because they've been sexually violated. And what they've done is they're still trying to transform that energy into healing love and understand themselves, but you can still feel it in their bodies. So regardless of what language she's speaking or not, it's more of like who she is as a person in her body. And of course, when a woman's saying that, you know, I'm here for you, I'm looking at you, I want to be with you, I'm ready to let go, it's gorgeous, it's beautiful. It's, if she's saying that, you know, I'm really sexual, I'm also very sensual. You know, I like to wear these things. They make me feel hot. Right now I'm wearing freaking red hot underwear, and it's because it's not necessary for you, because I fucking like looking what I look like in the mirror.
That's right.
You know, that's what's going to turn a guy on, because it's like, wow, you know, because it's not a woman trying to get someone to look at her. It's that she feels hot now.
Exactly.
That's
and
attractive.
for
And the
herself.
bottom line is that if a woman's watching this and they're kind of questioning, wow, am I really experiencing this, or am I the act?
Yes.
Really, you can only answer that question for yourself. You can't lie to yourself, and you know if you're not embodying it, if you're not being it, and that's okay if you're not. But I love that you said that, and that you said that, because then that creates the awareness of, wait, am I just talking about this? Am I just playing a role, or is this really who I am?
And most women are going to, or people are going to be acting it, because really we need more role models, to be honest. We just need more role models to say, you know, give others permission and lead the way. It's the connection to who you are, constantly going back to that, and your body, and how open is your heart.
I love that.
How open is your heart?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mica, anything else on tap?
I have something to communicate. I also think it's very important that we as females make sure that we take responsibility for our own, to learn that, and not just always play, because we've been suppressed sexually for so long. It's very easy for us to play the victim and stay in that energy. So for me as a woman, and being surrounded by women that, when I said earlier, experience the jealousy or the judgment, I usually address it as well as she does, in order to heal one another, because it is our responsibility that we do learn and free ourselves from all these, you know, that's being suppressed sexuality, in order to end where you are, to get to that place. So I want to communicate as each, and not just the male's job to become conscious and understanding us and give it this time. We set the pace, so we do have to take the responsibility of setting it for ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and it's a lot of fun having other women to play with, and just being really connecting to your body, and having no agenda, and being present and complimenting each other. I love looking at other women and saying like, wow, she's beautiful. I love her curves. I really love the way her hair is and her smell, and I love being around her energy. And I'm like that with my friends, and I'm you know, very flirty, but you know, just being around them, and it changes when we can all be that way and really uplift each other. It's a whole different way of being. It's beautiful.
If you're being offered some free tools that could get you unstuck, would you be interested? If so, visit raydoctor.com and receive your free transformational exercises. Imagine starting each day feeling deeper love, a clearer mind, and being able to say to yourself, I really feel good. My clients love these, and so will you. Get them now for free at raydoctor.com.